Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
After all, it was Josephine's first day with him. Therefore, she still somewhat couldn't accept sharing the same bathroom with him face to face. Even so, Josephine still couldn't help but secretly peek at Ethan through the glass door. When she heard the sound of water running inside, like the bathing scene of the male lead in a blockbuster movie, every line of his body that was carved on the glass was perfect and alluring. The longer she stared at Ethan's silhouette, the more she felt the temperature of the water getting hotter and hotter. Eventually, Ethan was the first to finish washing up. When he came out of the shower, he wrapped his lower body loosely with a towel. Then, he came to the bathtub, cupped Josephine's face, kissed it, and said in a hoarse voice, "I'll be waiting for you on the bed." Josephine simply blinked. Don't tell me he still wants more. But then, judging from his condition, he does look like he is still somewhat eager for more. After all, Ethan had just tasted the woman he fancied and yearned for today. Therefore, he couldn't possibly be satisfied with only a few rounds, especially when he had been holding himself back so hard for the sake of caring for Josephine's emotions this afternoon. For that reason, Josephine must be prepared to repay him for saving her life tonight. Later, she came out of the bathroom wearing camisole pajamas and her hair down, exuding a vibe of wild comeliness. Every curve of her body that would normally be tightly wrapped in her occupational attire was lined out perfectly in the alluring small camisole pajamas. Her smooth and delicate calves were fair and slender like a work of art under the light. The design of her burgundy pajamas, which precisely covered down until her knees, was sexy and tempting, making her exude a seductive aura. As a result, Ethan, who was resting his head on his arm while waiting for her on the bed, found himself to be so captivated that he was unable to take his eyes off her at all. This woman is like a treasure that I have discovered by myself, and at the same time, she can only be mine for the rest of my life. Ethan lifted the blanket and got out of bed. His tall figure towered over Josephine like a dense net. Without the help of her high heels, Josephine's current height was only slightly taller than his shoulders, making her look extraordinarily petite and mesmerizing. With a smile, Ethan easily lifted her slim waist. Josephine naturally wrapped her legs around his waist and buried her face into his shoulders sheepishly. "You smell so nice," Ethan praised in a hoarse voice. Despite not suffering from any medicinal effect at this moment, Josephine still felt as though the medicinal effect was still lingering within her. She was infatuated with Ethan's charm and couldn't control herself. Truth be told, she had a daring thought in mind the first time she saw him. She had the urge to sleep with him. Although she was a woman, she had no intentions of hiding this thought of hers at all. "I can't believe my dream eventually came true. Huh. This is perhaps the bravest thing I have ever done in my life. Does it still hurt?" Ethan asked in a deep voice. Josephine felt her private area for a little before she shook her head sheepishly in his arms. Ethan was overjoyed when he saw this. At once, he turned off the lights, keeping the room dimly lit. Carrying Josephine in his arms, he walked toward the bed. In the past, Josephine could only rely on her imagination when completing her copywriting work for both genders. However, things would be different starting today. Now, she could finally voice her thoughts based on her own experience. She finally tasted the pleasure of close intimacy between a couple, which she wrote about. Josephine's biological clock woke her up early the next morning. She opened her eyes and saw that she was resting her head on Ethan's strong arm. At once, everything that happened in this bed last night streamed into her mind, and she curved her rosy lips blissfully. As soon as she moved, Ethan opened his eyes. Staring at his truly charming-looking amber pupils that were infused with sunlight, Josephine thought to herself, "No matter what, I must conceive his child. I'm curious to see if the child will inherit his charming eyes. I must not let such a good gene go to waste." Good morning, Ethan greeted. Morning. Josephine reached out and pinched Ethan's cheeks. Meanwhile, Ethan put his huge palm into her silky hair and brushed his face against her ears intimately. It was as if he didn't even want to get up. 10 minutes later, Josephine stood in front of the French window on the second floor with a glass of water. She looked out at the garden full of flowers and breathed in the air, which had a mix of earthy and floral scents. This is undoubtedly a luxurious enjoyment if we are in the city center. Ethan approached her from behind. You don't have to go to the office today. I'm giving you 3 days off. As expected, the perks of having their boss as their boyfriend. One could get days off whenever they felt like it. Something came across Josephine's mind, making her turn her head and ask, I have an interview form that requires your signature. What kind of interview is so great that it needs the wife of Mr. Quarles to conduct in person? Ethan asked as he chuckled deeply. Upon hearing that, Josephine burst out laughing. I have to. So, are you gonna sign it or not? Kissing her on the neck, Ethan said, all right. I have no problem giving you my life anyway. So of course, I will sign the form for you. However, Josephine didn't want him to give her his life. All she wanted was to be with him for the rest of her life. Besides, she didn't feel like going into the office either today, considering not even the most body-wrapping clothes could cover the hickeys on her neck. She had no intention to be the talk of everyone in the company. Did you ask your bodyguards to beat Dane up yesterday? Josephine asked. Will that put you in trouble then? No, it won't. In fact, not only will I make him get hospitalized, but I will also take legal action against him. Anger flashed across Ethan's eyes as he spoke these words. A scumbag like Dane doesn't deserve to have a place in this world. Josephine was infuriated as well. A man like Dane probably must have harmed a lot of young ladies before. He should be imprisoned for his action. At noon, Ethan took her out to the restaurant for lunch. Although Josephine didn't have to go into the office, work was still unavoidable. She had a cup of coffee to go and came back home. Ethan went out to deal with some affairs, and she, on the other hand, enjoyed her cup of coffee. Sitting in front of the huge French window on the first floor, Josephine sipped her coffee while working. This is precisely my dream work scenario. Meanwhile, an international flight had just landed at the international airport. In the first-class cabin, a young lady with a pair of sunglasses was looking out the window. She seemed to wonder what charm this city had that could make a man like Ethan not want to leave. Miss, do you need help? The stewardess came forth and asked enthusiastically. No, thank you, the young lady rejected in a rather cold voice. Then, she picked up her expensive bag and got off the plane. The stewardesses behind her looked at each other. Is she a model? I seem to have seen her before. She is of mixed race, so she's really pretty. When the young lady came out of the airport, she stretched out her arm, grabbed her phone, and dialed a number. Hello, Jacques. I have arrived. Miss Jenna, do you need me to go and pick you up? Just tell me his address, and I'll go find him personally. Besides, he probably doesn't even know I'm here. I did as you ordered. I didn't notify Mr. Quarles. Good. I won't let him know that it was you who told me either. Thanks. I'll go and meet him myself. Shortly after, Jenna received the complete address from Jacques. Then, she hailed a cab. With her fluent English, she said, Sir, please take me to this place. At this moment, Jacques, Ethan's bodyguard, heaved a sigh of relief after he hung up. I have no choice. Jenna Langley is Mr. Quarles' future fiancée, chosen by his family. I can't keep it from her, nor do I dare to, but at the same time, he didn't dare to tell Jenna that Ethan had a girlfriend here either, for he believed that Jenna would deal with the situation well. After Josephine finished her work, she came to the garden and admired the beauty of the flowers. Ethan even especially had someone to add a swing for her, allowing her to reminisce about her childhood. Currently, she played on the swing while admiring the flowers, waiting for him to come home. Just then, Josephine heard the sound of a doorbell ringing. By the sound of it, it seemed to be coming from the direction of the front entrance. Hence, she couldn't help being surprised. Who is it that's on the door? It surely isn't Ethan, and I didn't order any food delivery either. Could it be someone from real estate? Thinking of this, Josephine made her way toward the door. Since there was a visual screen next to the door, Josephine couldn't help being surprised when she saw a tall female figure appear on the screen. Who's this young lady? Josephine talked to the person outside the door through the visual screen. Who are you looking for? Are you Ethan's servant? Instead of answering Josephine's question, the woman outside the door instantly asked back. Ethan? Does she mean Ethan? Before Josephine could react, the woman's voice sounded from the other end. I am Ethan's girlfriend. Please open the door for me. Josephine's mind buzzed and went blank for a few seconds before she opened the door. Her emotions became extremely mixed up as she looked at the elegant and tall woman with a suitcase and sunglasses outside the door. Thinking she heard it wrong, Josephine asked. Again, I'm sorry, but can you repeat what you just said? Jenna furrowed her brows at the disrespect she felt. Raising a brow, she retorted, I'm Ethan's girlfriend. Got it now? He's not home. Call him if you're looking for him. Josephine slammed the door shut and turned around to walk into the house. Hey. Hey. Who are you? Who are you to block me outside? Jenna was dumbfounded. How dare a maid like her leave me outside? Josephine entered the living room as she felt a fire burning in her that almost consumed her. She noticed the phone on the couch and picked it up to call Ethan. Hey, I'm on the way home. Almost there. Ethan thought she was worried after waiting for him, so he told her his whereabouts. Ethan, I'm asking you once more. Do you have a girlfriend? Josephine's tone was serious as she questioned him. Of course not, he answered instantly. I'm gonna give you 1 minute. Think carefully before answering me. Josephine was furious beyond imagination. Joey, what happened? Anyone said something to you? Ethan was a little dazed and started to panic a little. He could feel that she wasn't joking around. It seemed like she was angry for real. No one told me anything. Your girlfriend is here. Josephine answered him calmly. You should explain yourself when you're back. Then, she hung up the phone. Her chest heaved up and down and tears welled up in her eyes. But she held them in. She didn't want to make herself look so cheap. Besides, she wasn't the type to make the other party stay just because they slept together. She was an adult and could take responsibility for her own actions. Shit. Ethan cursed in the car before immediately dialing a number and scolding in Chinese. Soon, a bodyguard answered the phone. Hi, young master. I was the one who told Miss Jenna about your whereabouts. You're fired. Ethan fired him on the spot, furious at the revelation. He had told the bodyguard to never tell his family about him. He didn't expect him to disobey his orders. At that moment, Jenna stood before the villa, biting her red lips. She crossed her arms and took a deep breath. She decided to tell Ethan about herself. However, just as she was about to call him, she heard a car from behind her and turned around to look. Realizing it was a familiar car, she was elated to find Ethan had returned. She immediately flipped her long hair and let out a charming and innocent smile. When Ethan got out of the car, she sweetly called out, Ethan, you're back. Who said you can be here? Ethan questioned her in displeasure. Then, he instructed, my bodyguard will send you to the airport. You're going back alone. Jenna reached out to grab his arm when she heard that. I don't want to. I'm here for you. I heard you're on holiday. We can take this opportunity to spend some time together. Right at that moment, Josephine heard the car and walked out to the courtyard. She stood on the side of the fence and saw Jenna acting coquettishly with Ethan in the driveway. Josephine stared at them as she felt a stab in her heart. Who is that girl? Are they really a couple? Have I become a homewrecker? Ethan, you jerk. She cursed in her heart. Right then, the gate opened and Ethan strode over and saw Josephine standing there. He panicked and walked up to her. Joey, I can explain. Jenna, who anxiously came in after him with her luggage, was stunned. She noticed how panicked Ethan was about Josephine and wondered if she really had mistaken Josephine for Ethan's maid. Then, she watched as Ethan strode over and held Josephine tightly in his arms. Her eyes widened and a slap came down on Ethan's face as he was pushed away by Josephine. Jenna was furious because the man she loved got slapped out of the blue. She stomped over angrily and questioned, "Who are you to slap Ethan?" She raised her arm immediately after, taking advantage of her height and wanting to return the slap to Josephine. Just as her arm was up in the air, Ethan grabbed her arm and stood in front of Josephine. He warned in a low tone, "Don't touch her, Jenna." "But she slapped you. You're the distinguished young master of the Quarles family. Who is she to do that?" Jenna couldn't believe her eyes. This was the first time she saw Ethan being slapped, not to mention it was by an ordinary girl. Josephine also regretted slapping him. Earlier, he dashed over and hugged her, but she couldn't get out of his embrace. Since she was already beside herself, the anger fueled her actions and she accidentally slapped him. "She's my girlfriend. The one I love the most. I won't allow anyone to lay a finger on her," Ethan declared firmly. His words stunned both women. Josephine never expected Ethan to introduce her so openly. Jenna, on the other hand, was in utter disbelief. Ethan said this average-looking girl is his girlfriend? How could this be? Then, what am I to him? What about me? I've liked you for so long. I've been by your side for so long. Am I nothing to you? Jenna questioned painfully. Josephine, who was standing by the side, finally understood what was happening. All this time, it was Jenna self-proclaiming that she was Ethan's girlfriend. Ethan didn't think of her as his girlfriend at all. "In my eyes, you're a friend, but also a sister." Ethan tried to console her. Tears streamed down Jenna's face and washed away her exquisite makeup. She looked at him in despair. "No. I don't want to be your sister or just a friend. I've loved you for 3 years. I want to be your girlfriend." Josephine felt the hand that she slapped Ethan was still tingling with pain. She regretted acting so rashly just now. "I should have listened to his explanation first." She cast secret glances at the red mark on Ethan's face before caressing his face and asking with concern, "I'm sorry. I misunderstood you." However, Ethan wrapped his long arms around her. "It's okay. As long as we cleared the air." "Does it still hurt?" she asked softly. "Nope." Ethan shook his head. Suddenly, Jenna stared at Josephine with resentment. "Do you know who he is? Do you know how wealthy his family is? You are not worthy of him." "Stop it, Jenna. I don't want to make things ugly between our families," Ethan warned harshly. Jenna was taken aback. Even if Ethan was cold to her back then, he never once looked at her with those cold, warning eyes. So, she felt wronged for being treated like this. She cried harder as she looked at Ethan and bit her lips. "Is it wrong of me to like you? I came all the way here for you and didn't even have time to catch my breath. Can I go in for some tea?" Before Josephine could say anything, Ethan rejected her. "This is my and Josephine's home. It's not convenient for you to enter." I'll ask my bodyguard to arrange a place for you. You should go back after resting tonight. At that moment, two of Ethan's bodyguards walked in after parking their car. Ethan asked them to carry Jenna's luggage for her. Despite being unwilling, Jenna could only walk away. However, she turned around and stared at Josephine for a long time with eyes filled with envy, resentment, and hatred. Josephine calmly met Jenna's gaze and watched her leave before cupping her hands around Ethan's face to check the injury tenderly. "Does it hurt?" "I was too rough." However, Ethan grabbed her hands and smirked. "It's okay. I've got a thick face. It doesn't hurt." Josephine's hand hurt from hitting Ethan earlier, and she was abruptly filled with a deep sense of regret. "I promise never to hit you again," she promised. Ethan snorted with laughter when he heard those words. Reaching out, he pulled her into his embrace. "Why are you making such childlike promises?" "I will definitely control myself in the future." Blinking back her tears, she threw her arms around his waist tightly. "I will properly listen to your explanation next time." Then, she looked up at him and asked, "Do you have any other crazy admirers aside from that woman? Hurry up and tell me about them so that I won't be jealous of them in the future." He mulled over her question and shook his head. "I don't know. I never paid any attention to them." His answer left her with no choice but to give up on her original objective. She had initially thought that she could trick him into telling her about whether he had any other admirers in the past. "Is Miss Langley the daughter of your parents' friend?" "Yeah. She is the daughter of my mother's friend. We've known each other since childhood, but I only regard her as a friend. She's really pretty. Not to mention, she looks like a model," she added. He involuntarily smiled and stroked the tip of her nose endearingly. "Didn't you say you trusted me? Why are you testing me again?" She blinked innocently to conceal her embarrassment and smiled mischievously. "I do trust you." Ethan brought Josephine into the hall. As soon as he entered the hall, he reached out and pulled her into his arms. They collapsed onto the couch together. Lying on top of him, she looked up at him with glistening eyes. She never wanted to see another woman approaching him again. If it happened again, she was certain she would be very jealous. That was because she had a strong possessive streak in her heart. She wished that her lover would only belong to her forever. Meanwhile, he wrapped his arms around the back of her lower waist. Their position instantly became rather ambiguous. Supporting the back of her head, he planted a kiss on her forehead. "Are we going out for dinner tonight? Or are we cooking at home? Are you willing to cook?" "I'm bad at cooking," she questioned. "Sure. I'll prepare steak and spaghetti for you." "Wow. That sounds great. In that case, I'll help you," she exclaimed happily and threw her arms around his neck. Ethan took out his phone and instructed the bodyguards to deliver some ingredients. What was more, these ingredients were flown in under his orders to ensure they maintained their authentic taste. He used to love traveling around the world in the past and became quite talented in cooking as a result. Hence, he was excited to demonstrate his skills to Josephine tonight. Nevertheless, there was still quite some time before dinner. He felt that those hours should not be wasted by doing nothing. Rather, the time would be better spent doing something he enjoyed. Josephine had been looking forward to the dinner he was going to prepare tonight. Unbeknownst to her, she had already turned into a scrumptious delicacy in his eyes. When he suddenly lifted her in his arms, she gave a surprised but coquettish cry. Then, he carried her upstairs with a wicked smirk. Her body went weak. As somebody who had only just learned about such pleasures, she was faintly addicted and fascinated by such matters. When they reached the bed, he pressed his body against her so that she was cushioned between him and the bed. All of a sudden, a shock of electricity exploded in her mind. He kissed her in a domineering manner at that moment, and their tongues entangled together. All thoughts faded from her mind after that. She hoped that she would always enjoy such a sinful life of debauchery with him in the future. Inside the five-star hotel, Jenna angrily sat on the couch. She never imagined that a woman would appear beside Ethan in the few months that they were separated. Not to mention, Ethan was so loving and doting toward the woman. What kind of background does that woman have? Which family does she come from? What methods did she use to seduce him? With Ethan's experience and status, he would never take interest in normal women. However, that woman looked extremely ordinary. Naturally, she would never consider or appreciate Josephine's strengths. She would not have been impressed even if Josephine had turned out to be an incredible beauty instead. Reaching out for her phone, she dialed that bodyguard's number and questioned him bluntly, "Tell me, who is that woman beside Ethan?" "Miss Langley, Mr. Quarles fired me because I helped you." "Do you happen to need the services of a bodyguard, Miss Langley?" His question stunned her for a moment. Nevertheless, she realized that she was indeed going to need the services of a bodyguard since she was planning to stay here for some time. Making up her mind, she agreed without hesitation. "In that case, you can work for me. I'll pay you a salary, but you have to work for me wholeheartedly." "No problem, Miss Langley. Hurry up and tell me about that woman's background. What does she have that makes Ethan like her?" "I have not been following Mr. Quarles recently, so I am not too clear about the specific details of her identity. However, I know that she works at the TV station." "Which TV station?" "It's the TV station that Mr. Quarles invested in recently. I believe he invested in the company because of her." After hearing that, Jenna was peeved. How did Ethan meet her? "I think they met during the wedding held by the Presgrave group. I am not sure about the exact details, but Mr. Quarles came to Averna after the wedding because of her. He also bought a villa for her to reside." It would have been better if she had not asked any questions. After asking those questions, she felt a wave of injustice and rage surging within her. She had courted Ethan for so long, but a woman Ethan just met had quickly gotten ahead of her. Who could accept such a thing? At the very least, she could not accept such humiliation. Even if she could not obtain Ethan, she refused to let Josephine have him. Just the thought of them being together enraged her too much. Ever since she was a child, she had never allowed anybody to obtain what she could not have. The same rules applied when it came to men. There had been no women by Ethan's side previously, so she had not felt very disturbed. However, there was now a woman by his side. She suddenly felt as though she had a goal to achieve. For her, driving away the women beside Ethan would give her a great sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. In any case, she would never let such an ordinary woman obtain a man like Ethan. Josephine was simply not worthy of Ethan. That night, Josephine finished the dinner that Ethan prepared for her and happily washed the dishes with him. Afterward, they went for an evening stroll together. She finally arrived at the company on the morning of the third day. That was because she simply had too much work piling up on her desk. As soon as she sat down at her desk, Ren leaned over and gave her a thumbs up. "Joey, you're amazing. Have you seen the news today? The Vital Corp is being investigated. Thanks to your interview, the authorities have noticed certain major issues involving the company." She blinked in confusion. "Does that have anything to do with me?" On that day, she not only failed to interview Dane but also fell prey to one of his evil schemes. All she knew was that Dane had been hospitalized after receiving a beating from Ethan's bodyguard. It would probably take him half a year to recover from his injuries. As for the rest, she remained completely ignorant. "Really?" Josephine asked curiously. "How can you not know about this?" It was the trending headline of this morning's news. "Our company has been credited for the discovery." As the person in charge of the interview, it's only natural that the credit goes to you. Josephine immediately realized that Ethan must have settled the matter for her. Therefore, the credit for the investigation into Vital Corp actually belonged to him. I can't believe he didn't say a word to me. She couldn't help feeling slightly resentful. At that moment, Mr. Fox walked over with a capable and experienced woman behind him. Josephine, come here. This person will be your successor, so please hand over your current tasks to her. Josephine was thrown into confusion once more. It has only been the third day since I was absent from work. Why does the company already have a successor for my position? Hello, Miss Jacobson. I am the newly hired employee, Esther Fleming. I look forward to working with you. The woman had clearly been poached from another company. Hello, Esther. Hang on, I'll grab you a chair. Josephine gave Esther a warm welcome. Josephine's reaction stunned Esther. When Esther was in the restroom earlier, she heard the news that Josephine was the future female boss of the company. Hence, she had been worried that Josephine would be difficult to approach. She did not expect Josephine to be so friendly. Mr. Fox immediately said to Josephine, "Have a seat, Joey. I'll find a chair for her." "Thank you very much, Mr. Fox." Josephine smiled. The truth was that he was eager to curry favor with her. He never imagined that her future would change so drastically in less than a month. She had gone from an unknown reporter to the lady boss of a large company in the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, he only managed to become the team leader after working hard for so many years. Sigh. That's just life. The world is never equal after all. Afterward, Josephine started transferring her work to Esther. It was fortunate that Esther was experienced in their profession, so she learned the ropes quickly. She even took the opportunity to settle some matters. In the meantime, Josephine and Ren chatted with each other in the pantry. Ren and Josephine were good colleagues at work and good friends in private. Ren was the only one with whom Josephine could have heart-to-heart conversations in the office. "Joey, congratulations. You'll have to tell me as soon as you have a wedding date." Josephine couldn't help but smile. As she said before, her fate hadn't been written yet. It was still too early to say anything. But now, she was looking forward to the day. "Okay. I promise I won't forget you. After all, I have your wedding gift to look forward to." Josephine laughed. Ren immediately rolled her eyes. "Madam President, how dare you ask for a wedding gift? You won't be able to count how much money you'll have by then." Josephine chuckled. Who would even bother to count? That's right. From now on, money will just be a number to you, and 99% of your troubles will be gone from then on, Ren said. Then, the two ladies had another laugh before standing up. At this moment, a woman was sitting in a black SUV parked in front of the office. It was none other than Jenna. She looked at the office building and asked Jack, "She's working here?" "Yes. I've been here with Mr. Quarles." Jenna decided to have a proper chat with Josephine today. She wanted to let Josephine know how great of a person Ethan was so that Josephine would be too ashamed to stick around him. Either that or she was going to give Josephine a sum of money to leave him. Jenna assumed that the female employees here must be short of money, and she could easily buy them off with just 10 million. With that in mind, she pushed the door open and got out of the car. "Wait for me here, I'll be right back." She slowly walked into the building and headed to the receptionist to ask, "Where can I find Josephine Jacobson?" Josephine is in the reporter's office on the 8th floor. The receptionist exchanged glances with her colleague before answering. Her. This woman has an exotic vibe to her. She looks so beautiful. I think she's of mixed race. Upon hearing that, Jenna went straight to the 8th floor. She winked at the first male employee she saw. Hey, I'm looking for Josephine. Where is she? The male employee was almost giddy with joy and quickly got up to lead her to Josephine's desk himself. Josephine was handing over her work to Esther when she heard a voice. Looking up, she was startled to see Jenna standing behind her male colleague. She did not expect Jenna to find out where she worked and even show up in her office. "Miss Langley, is something the matter?" Josephine immediately got up and asked. "Let's talk," Jenna ordered while lifting her chin haughtily. Josephine pointed at the pantry. "There's no one there right now, so let's talk over there." It was working hours, so not many people were in the pantry. Jenna found a seat and sat down with her arms crossed, her legs one over the other. "What does it take for you to leave Ethan?" Josephine had expected Jenna to ask these questions. She shook her head and said, "I'm not going to leave him." "Do you like him or his money?" "Both," Josephine responded directly with an indifferent voice. Jenna sneered in her mind. She knew that the woman before her was only interested in Ethan's money. "It seems like you're avaricious. If I tell you that you can't marry into the Quarles family, will you believe me? Can you speak on behalf of the Quarles family?" Josephine retorted. Jenna couldn't help but choke on her words. "I know the Quarles family well. They would never find someone like you to be married into their family. At the very least, they would find someone reputable to be their daughter-in-law." However, Josephine wasn't affected by Jenna's words as she calmly replied, "Miss Langley, then let me advise you as well. You're so young and beautiful. You can get anyone from any family if you want. Ethan already has someone in mind. Please don't bother him anymore." Jenna's face darkened when she heard this. "You have no right to tell me to leave him. I'm doing this for your own good lest you waste any more time on him." Josephine raised her eyebrows. "Hoof. Are you pitying me? You have no idea about my relationship with Ethan. We're childhood sweethearts," Jenna said coldly. "Yet Ethan told me he only sees you as a younger sister. If he really likes you, he will start to notice you more after you come of age. If he doesn't like you, even if you bother him for the rest of his life, he will never have feelings for you," Josephine persuaded her calmly. Jenna was furious, for Josephine's words were really hurting her ego. "If you won't take my word for it, Miss Langley, there's nothing else I can do. If you're trying to convince me to leave Ethan, you'll just be wasting your breath," Josephine said coldly. "Hoof. Do you really think you can handle a man like Ethan? You don't have to instill doubt in my mind. We love each other. On the other hand, people like you with no one to love should be the ones worrying," Josephine said with finality in her tone. "Well, I still have a job to do. I won't be seeing you off." "Josephine, stop right there." Jenna got up angrily and called after Josephine. With a frown, Josephine said, "If you continue to cause trouble in the office, I won't mind getting the security guard to kick you out. This is an office. It's not a palace for you to fool around." Jenna was rendered speechless from anger. She didn't want Ethan to be alerted about this, so she ultimately picked up her bag and left. After leaving the pantry, Josephine had a feeling that Jenna had malicious intentions. It seemed like she had made the right choice to stay calm and not fall for Jenna's tricks. She only needed to trust herself, Ethan, and their feelings for one another. She didn't need to believe anyone else. Josephine received a call from Atticus at 3:00 p.m., asking her to head up. Thinking it was about work, she headed up with no second thoughts. Just as she got into the elevator, she ran into Tori. When she noticed that Tori was also going to the 12th floor, she suddenly understood what was going on. "Josephine, congratulations. Miss Ine's position is yours now," Tori said in a weird tone. "Now the whole company knows that Miss Ine will be fired soon. You don't have to worry about getting kicked out of the company anymore." Josephine had her heart in her mouth. It was obviously just a chance for promotion, but Tori made it sound as if Josephine had forced Ein out of the position. I've never thought of replacing Miss Ein. She needs 2 years to recover from her illness. I'll just be taking over her position temporarily, Josephine said warily. As soon as she said that, the elevator arrived on the 12th floor with a ding. Josephine stepped out of the elevator, and a mocking voice was immediately heard behind her. Haha. You mean when Miss Ein returns, you'd go back to your initial job? Josephine responded without looking back, we'll just have to wait and see what the company's arrangements are then. What company arrangement? Isn't this all your arrangement? If you say a word now, you can have any position you want, Tori sneered. Isn't this company yours already? Miss Alford, watch your words. Maybe I'd be interested in your position as well. Josephine turned around as she spoke to intimidate her. As expected, Tori's triumphant face turned flustered. Josephine, do you think just anyone can take my post? You shouldn't talk so much if you don't want the company to go bankrupt. Josephine smiled calmly. Miss Alford, are you scared? Tori faked her confidence and said with her head held high, I have nothing to be afraid of. Even if I don't stay with this company, I have so many other places to go. Capable people wouldn't be at the bottom for long. Josephine ignored the lady and knocked on the office door. When Atticus saw her, he greeted her with a big smile, Josephine. We've made some arrangements in the company. Starting this week, we'll train you for a week to get you accustomed to Ein's position. All right. I'll do my best. Josephine was no longer humbling herself. Now that she had reached here, she could finally stand on her own 2 feet. Well, we've completed all your transferal procedures. After you're done with your handover, you can come back up anytime. If you don't understand anything, you can ask the senior employees, like Una, Gabriella, or even Lennox. Okay. I understand, Josephine agreed happily. Oh, right. Please say a few good words about the company to Mr. Quarles. The company is currently doing really well, and the stock prices have been rising continuously. I think he already knows. Josephine laughed. But Mr. Quarles will definitely listen to what you have to say. Atticus said with a smile. Right now, he was trying to curry favors with Josephine. This way, the company would always have a strong investor behind it. When the meeting was over, Josephine pushed open the door and saw a figure running away to the next corridor. It was clear that whoever it was, they were eavesdropping. Josephine frowned and walked straight to the corridor to find out who it was. She soon saw the figure in front of her. It was Katrina. Irked, she immediately stopped her. Katrina. Katrina felt a little guilty as she turned around and asked, What is it? Why were you eavesdropping? What exactly did you want to hear? Josephine asked. Who said I was eavesdropping? I just happened to pass by. Katrina didn't want to admit it. At this point, Josephine didn't bother saying anything more and turned to leave. However, just as she walked away, she heard Katrina mocking her from behind. Josephine, I know you've been promoted, but your promotion upsets the whole company. If I were you, I wouldn't stay here any longer. As Josephine didn't like Katrina, she did not hesitate as she turned around to scold her. Instead of wasting time talking about me, you should work on yourself more. Katrina snorted. Do you really think you're that great? You just got lucky with Mr. Quarles and climbed up with his status. Josephine really hated these types of insults. Just a single sentence would completely disregard her efforts. Yet, Katrina stood there as if her words were completely justified. Whether it's my own capabilities or not, I don't need to prove it to someone like you, Josephine said harshly before turning around and leaving. Katrina gritted her teeth angrily behind her. She planned to stay in this company and wait for the day when Josephine got discarded by Ethan. When that day came, she would definitely extinguish whatever was left of Josephine's flames. When Josephine returned to her desk, Esther had already started working. Ren had helped her a lot. Right then and there, Josephine's phone rang. Seeing this, she went to the pantry to answer the call. Hello. You've been promoted. This calls for a celebration, no? A gentle and loving voice came from the other end of the call. Josephine didn't even think about it and agreed wholeheartedly, all right. It's on me. Do we still have to draw such a clear line? I'm already yours, is there anything of mine that isn't yours? The man said softly. Josephine was elated when she heard that. She smiled brightly. Okay, then I'll treat you to dinner with your money. I'll make a reservation then. Josephine was really looking forward to the date with him tonight. This was the best part of being in this relationship. Every day was filled with anticipation. In the car outside the office, Jenna took out a pack of cigarettes and lit one up. She let out a big sigh before mumbling, is there really nothing I can do about her? Miss Jenna, maybe you should tell the Corals and their elders about it. Let them stop Mr. Ethan instead, Jack suggested. Jenna's eyes lit up. That's right. Why didn't? Think about that. She's just an ordinary person. The Corals will definitely not accept her. If she brought this up, she would definitely have to tweak the story a little. She would tell the Corals about how Josephine had seduced their son in order to gain access to the family's wealth. If Josephine were described as a vain, gold-digging, materialistic woman, the elders of the Corals would definitely oppose their marriage. This idea excited Jenna, and she took out her phone. She quickly found Ethan's mother's phone number and dialed it. Hello? Donna Finch's voice came from the other end. Mrs. Corals, it's me, Jenna. I know. What's wrong, Jenna? Donna asked gently. Mrs. Corals, do you know that Ethan has a girlfriend? What? Ethan has a girlfriend? Is it you? Donna asked speculatively. Jenna had always been confident that the Corals family liked her. Hearing this, she couldn't help but feel wronged as she exclaimed, Mrs. Corals, how can I be so lucky? Ethan has another girl by his side. Isn't Ethan on vacation? Are you with him? Yes, I just arrived here, but I need to tell you something, so you won't be kept in the dark. What is it? There's a girl who pulled some strings to charm Ethan. She even asked him to get her a villa and invest in a company. He even planned to leave the Corals family to settle here with her so he could continue splurging on her. What? How did this happen? Of course, Donna was furious when she heard that her son was obsessed with a woman like this. The image of a materialistic and greedy woman appeared in her mind. It was said that women were the most important thing for the growth of a family. If such a gold digger and selfish daughter-in-law entered the family, they would be ruined no matter how powerful the family was. Mrs. Corals, if you don't believe me, I can take a picture and let you see the girl's face. Okay, Jenna. Take a picture, then show me. I want to see what kind of girl tricked her way into Ethan's heart. Donna's voice was no longer gentle but full of overbearing anger. All right, Mrs. Corals. Just wait a moment. Once I've taken the videos and photos, I'll send them to you immediately. Jenna waited in the car. She guessed that Ethan would come to pick Josephine up from work. Sure enough, around 5:00 p.m., Jack pointed at a red sports car. Miss Jenna, that's what Mr. Corals gave Josephine as a gift. Jenna was incredibly jealous. Although she had the money to buy the same car, Ethan's kindness was priceless. Follow them. I want to take videos and photos of them, she ordered Jack. After a while, Ethan came out with a girl in his arms. It was Josephine. They were talking, laughing, and kissing sweetly, making outsiders envious. Jenna couldn't believe what she saw at all. To her, Ethan was a flower that grew on top of a snow mountain and couldn't be touched. She'd spent so many years by his side, she even worked hard to win his attention, but it was useless. Yet, now, Josephine had him wrapped around her fingers. How could Jenna be okay with that? Thus, she picked up her phone and quickly took a video. When the couple got to the car, Ethan patted Josephine's head and kissed her forehead lovingly. Even before getting into the car, he still wanted to be affectionate. Judging from his actions, Ethan seemed to be the one who was more in love. However, it was just that Josephine was more conservative. So, she didn't have the nerve to do anything with Ethan publicly. In fact, she really wanted to hug him and even wanted to touch his chest and abs when she saw him, but she could only do these things behind closed doors when they returned to the villa. However, Ethan had been living in a foreign country. Therefore, he did not shy away from showing affection publicly. After their car left, Jenna followed behind them. In her SUV. She could only wait outside as she watched them enter a restaurant. She didn't want Ethan to find out that she was secretly filming them lest she left a bad impression on him. After all, she was still looking for an opportunity to be with him. Over at the restaurant, the atmosphere was romantic, with the accompaniment of soft music and exquisite dishes. Ever since Josephine met Ethan, she had become used to eating at high-class restaurants. However, she was always only half full by the end of the meal. As a person who was capable of devouring 2 plates of spaghetti when she got home from work, this meager amount of food simply could not satisfy her appetite. However, in front of the man she liked, Josephine pretended to be a lady. This was a change she made for the person she liked. "If you have any issues at work, come to me anytime. I'll solve it for you," said Ethan. If he was being honest, he wanted her to stop working. That way, he could take care of her and spend all his time with her. However, it was wrong to deprive her of her right to work. Everyone had a dream to pursue, and being an announcer while standing in front of a screen was Josephine's dream.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.